This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. A year ago this week, the third largest crypto exchange in the world, FTX, collapsed, seemingly suddenly, almost overnight. It's because of a report on November 2nd of 2022 that showed that the founder and a company that he owned the majority of the coin from FTX. That report caused people to start pulling their funding out, both selling of the FTX digital coin and the transferring of assets out of FTX into private wallets, into other exchanges. And what that ended up doing was exposing that there were billions of dollars worth of resources, worth of Bitcoin, among others, missing. If I remember correctly, the number was something like $9 or $12 billion worth of assets were just nowhere to be found. As people started to pull out, FTX shut down trading. If that sounds familiar, that's what Silicon Valley Bank did. And when there was a run, they just halted. We saw it with GameStop and AMC a couple of years ago during the pandemic. We saw it with FTX as well. Basically, they were in this case, they were trying to prevent the exposure of how many assets they had of customers they had transferred out of the company and into another one, and then had lost because the value of the tokens that they had transferred them into were plummeting, all because of the same report. So the executive leadership has been under both investigation and now charges for quite some time. And this week, interestingly, on the 1-year anniversary of the report, Sam Bankman-Fried, the former CEO of the corporation and the one who was holding assets out of the company in another company, was convicted on all 7 charges. And let me tell you, with maximum sentencing on all 7 charges, he is facing 110 years in prison. That is a lot of time. Now, again, somewhere between $9 and $12 billion went missing. It is a lot of money. This has been compared in scope and scale to Bernie Madoff, who also was sentenced to essentially life in prison, although for him that I think ended up amounting to about 6 years. But Sam Bankman-Fried is a fairly young guy. 110 years is going to be a life sentence for sure. And the judge at the beginning of the trial said, I think the exact quote was, if convicted, you are looking at a very long sentence. And that judge is responsible for sentencing here. So I think there's 2 things going on here. One, Fried screwed up massively and knew what he was doing the whole time. And also, the government wants to make very clear to the crypto industry that they will be prosecuting fraud. I think those 2 things are happening here concurrently.
Yeah, but speaking of concurrently, I don't think he's going to get a 110-year sentence. because I don't know. I was reading about this recently with how sentences work, and it seems that a lot of the times the sentences are concurrent, which means in effect that it's worthless because if you get 5 different crimes that are 20 years, and they're like, yeah, you're serving those 20 years all at the same time. It's as good as having committed one crime that's 20 years. They
Mm-hmm.
don't tack it on. So my guess is that he's not going to get 110 years. Maybe he'll get 20 years. Um, Now, listen, I wouldn't want to be in jail for 20 years.
Sure.
Uh, and but I don't. I mean, the bottom line is you don't actually know it's a life sentence till he dies, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
he could still get out, right?
Right. 110 years consecutive would certainly be, for somebody in his 30s, would almost certainly be a life sentence unless he gets out early.
Yeah, but there's all these parole
Right.
things, and
Right.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things are like you could serve. You can only serve 50% of the time before you're up for parole.
Right.
And granted, 110, if it was 50% of that, it'd be 55 years, which is a really
Right.
long time. So
Still
I don't
puts
know.
him
I'm just
into his late 80s, I think.
yes. Well, I don't know. Let's be fair. I probably won't be alive to find out if he's getting out after 55 years either. So, but yeah, I mean, look, he's going to go to jail for a long time.
Yeah.
That's good.
They have a
People
very
need
large book,
to
and
see
they are
that.
throwing it directly at his head.
I mean, yeah. I mean, good because if he gets out, he will probably start a new venture.
Yeah.
Um,
Firefest
and
2. Oh,
and
no,
he'll.
wait.
I mean, didn't like Michael Milken become a big deal after he got off? He got out for insider trading, and Ivan Boesky and all those
Yep.
guys who were big insider traders or whatever in the 80s. They got out and they were able to go right back to what they were doing.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
And
so
Billy McFarland went to prison for Fire Festival, and they're doing a second one.
look, what's his name?
I mean,
Jim Baker, the
I guess technically they're doing a first one since the first one didn't
the
actually
first one
happen.
didn't
But
really happen. People don't the people never learn, and by the people who never learn, I mean the suckers who
Mm-hmm.
will buy into these things. Like,
Yeah.
in another vein, I think Jim Baker, the televangelist, who was made all this news in the 80s or whatever for taking all the money and using it to buy air conditioned dog houses or whatever.
Yeah.
Is still I think he's still doing it. I think he's still at it. New wife, and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
So you can't win. Hopefully he goes away for a while. All I can say is don't invest. Be careful where you invest.
For sure. And a reminder, you should not be storing your cryptocurrency in an exchange. You should only have your assets in the exchange when you are exchanging. It's not a bank. It's not where you hold things. You put it there, then you pull it to a wallet outside of an exchange so that this kind of thing doesn't happen. Your currency should not live in the exchange. You're not getting interest. That's not how this thing works. Put it into the wallet, make your transfer, pull it back. Plain and simple. Then you don't have to worry about any of this.
Be careful.
Yeah, for sure. Understanding the technology is an important aspect of this, and a lot of people don't. And there was the everybody wants to invest in Bitcoin boom, and that put a lot of people's money into assets that they didn't understand where it was or how it was, and I know this is the second time we've mentioned Radio Shack tonight, but when we were we're at the store, we had a lock on our security cage in the back, and our district manager always said that's not there to prevent a thief, because a thief's going to steal it. It's to keep honest people honest. When there's something that's too good to be true, people tend to jump at it. Whether it be the people who were investing in Bitcoin without understanding it, or the management of FTX seeing those assets just sitting there and thinking, well, we could take those, invest them in something else, and make our own money, and then when they want it back, we can just transfer it back, which was obviously a terrible idea as well. And if the people didn't store their crypto in the exchange but kept it in their own private wallets, the red light going, hey, look, there's things here, wouldn't have been there, and they wouldn't have been able to even do this scheme in the first place. So understanding what it is you're investing in, whether it be cryptocurrency or any other asset, stocks and bonds, and understanding it is paramount. So like you said, hopefully he will see enough time to make it clear to anybody else who thinks this scheme is a good idea to stop them from doing it. That's send a good message to future potential schemers. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.